Welcome everybody. Just a quick reminder that anything you see on this channel is advice and done in a purely entertainment capacity only. I'm just a guy working on his stuff that breaks in his front yard. That's it. There are no warranties implied or given. This is just me working on junk, passing on what I've learned. End disclaimer. Good afternoon everyone out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this episode we're going to go ahead and do a complete front brake job on my wife's 2010 Ford Fusion. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, this is my first time using a GoPro, so please bear with me on how to do the thing. Anyway, my wife came to me with a complaint that when she hit the brakes it felt grindy in the pedal, even though you didn't hear a grind or anything like that. And I felt it too, moving the car around the yard. Didn't feel right. If you've ever done it, it felt like the ABS was turning on. That kind of grindy, grabbiness. So I took it off, and this side looks okay, rotor wise. When you're looking for rotor damage, you're looking for major grooving or cutting that when you run your finger over it, it catches. Like these rotors have a lip indicating they're worn, which makes sense. But this side feels pretty good, nothing scary here. However, if we take a look at the other side, that's when we start seeing a problem. Right there. That's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to look more like this. So we've got probably the backing plate rubbing and grabbing directly against the rotor, and that's no good. You probably could still turn this rotor, but I prefer to do rotors and pads together. That's just me. So that brings us to where we are at the moment. I've taken the tire off. As you saw, that's a 19mm lug nut. Get that off, and then next up we need to take the caliper off and then go from there. First thing we want to break loose is going to be the smaller bolts that are holding the caliper itself versus the frame. These are going to be 14s. Let's see here. Oh, that made it tighter. That was intelligent of me. There we go. By the way, I didn't explicitly call it out, but do make sure that you've got a jack stand in place to hold things up while you're working on this. Alright, so that breaks these loose. And get these out, just like that. And it should let you kind of wiggle the caliper out. Ow. Alright, once you've wiggled it out, okay, that's how that works. So once you wiggle it out, you kind of don't want to let the caliper hang by the brake line. That's not cool, so we don't do that. Well, that broke. Fortunately, I have new brake hardware with the kit that I bought. Alright, let's take a look at these pads. So this is the one that was on the outside. You can see it's very thin. It's almost worn out. And this is our interior pad, and there you go. This one, it went through the pad material and was into the backing plate, which is what I expected to see after I saw the damage on the rotor. So these were beyond due. What's supposed to happen is you're supposed to have a little piece of one of your brake clips that acts as a wear indicator, and when it starts to scrape the rotor, it'll start making like a shing noise. And I guess that didn't happen because these You know, as you just saw, went all the way through, damaged the rotor. Anyway, that's done. So the next thing we need to do is break loose this frame. The frame is going to be a 15mm bolt, and we want some leverage. Oh, yeah, a little bit of leverage. Holy cow! Okay, why is there an? All right. Ah. Whoo-wee. That was stuck. Alright, so we'll get these out. So we need to get this out in order to get our rotor out. And there's one other thing we will need to do to get the rotors out. The rotor hat itself is held in place with some Torx screws. I'll show you that here in a second. Once I understand why the ants keep biting, trying to bite my butt, I really don't know why they're doing this. Anyway, so there that goes. And these little guys here, they're kind of shot. Those are your anti-vibration clips. You have two sets of them, one that goes at the bottom, one that goes at the top. Try to keep an eye on where they go, because you're going to have to put in new ones or recycle your old ones if you didn't grab them. Alright, so we got all that out of the way. When we go to move the rotor, the caliper is going to start dancing on us, so we need to move the caliper again to somewhere. There we go. No, it said no, no sir. Can we get, will you go back there? Could you? Yeah, it'll go back there. Alright, so I tucked that. As you can see, it's kind of tucked it back there. Alright, let's come take a look at the front. Alright, so to make your life a little easier, could have tried to do this before it was time to take things out, but there are two Torx that hold the rotor hat in. They are T40s, and I am just going to rip them out with an impact driver, because if you try to take them out with like a ratchet, they'll try to strip on you. As you can see, these are pretty worn. I think they're the original ones, and this vehicle recently cleared the 250,000 mile mark. I can't believe that. Alright, so yeah, that's no bueno. That's where we had basically this doing this. Yep. Alright, let's go get our new parts. Alrighty, so we have our goodies. Normally I try to order stuff in, but wife needed this fixed up in a hurry, so just went to AutoZone. I don't have a sponsorship or anything, but they were running a Duralast bundle deal, so I did save some money on this. So our rotors are 42151DL, and our pad is a Duralast gold ceramic. It's going to be DG1164. First thing we need to do upon opening our box here is we're going to need to clean the oil that the factory left on it, the rotors, in order to keep them from rusting. We got to clean that off. It'll mess with the pads, so we'll get that cleaned off, and I'll show you what that looks like. Then we can go ahead and mount that back on, and then we take care of our pad stuff. Alright, so easiest way to do this, go ahead and put your rotor on, and do note your alignment to make sure that both of those rotors, those Torx that were used to hold the rotor in place, so that'll line up. So I got one, but I don't have two, but that's fine, because all we're doing is taking some brake clean hitting it, wiping it down. And then you're going to take some, probably put it on a towel, and you're going to wipe down the braking surface on the other side as well. And this is a necessary and required step. So I'll take this back off. I'm going to get this lined up correctly and go ahead and put these two back in. So that way our rotor's locked in place. And just like that, we're good to go. We got that one in and that one in. And by the way, if you wind up destroying one of these, or you're missing one, you can get by on one. And you can buy these as a Dorman replacement part, I think. So they're not unobtainium. You can get a hold of these if you need to. Like this one's kind of rough, as you can see. Anyway, that's that. Next step is we're gonna have to take our frame here, and we have to get the old clips out, put new ones in. We're gonna want to check our greasings on these pins because they actually are supposed to float. And when they don't float, what winds up happening is your pad wear is not even. It gets kind of goofy looking. Because I'm okay with the pad wear I saw over there. You know, we had one that was deep in the metal, and we had another that was, you know, it was worn really low. I'm okay with that. What you don't want is where you have one pad that still has meat on it, like you can still use it, and then the other one's worn out. That generally indicates that one of these is sticking, and that when last time someone did brakes, they didn't check the condition of this boot, and nor did they pack the inside of it with grease, which is what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so what we're going to do with these to take care of these pins, we're going to pull them out. Take a look here. These pins are decently greased, but what we're going to do is redo the grease. So we're going to clean old grease off. Interesting, this thing has like a little sliding little bobber that sits in the middle there. I've never actually done the front brakes on this car. This used to be my brother's car, and he was the last one who worked on it up front. I had to do the rear brakes, didn't film it, didn't have time. So what we're going to use, this is actually wheel bearing grease. It will absolutely do for our purposes. We just need a high temperature grease that we can glop on here. We want to make sure it's good and gloppy. So we want to make sure that this pin will slide, and that when you're doing heavy braking, that this grease still does grease stuff. So that's kind of the name of the game. It can be, you know, heavy machinery grease, it can be specialty brake grease if you want to do that, it can be bearing grease. All of those are fine. We just want it greasy. And then we're going to shove it back on and try to make sure that this boot seats, because it may fight you, and we don't want that. We do need it to seat, because when it seats, it seals, right? If we look at it sideways, you can see that it's partially sealed. It's got this piece, this section right here that doesn't want to seat. So I may have to go get a pick so I can kind of spin that around, get that to seat completely and thoroughly. In fact, I'm going to go do that. And then I'll do the others, you know, other pin, same deal. And then we'll actually work on putting in, well, we'll get the new anti-vibration clips in. Then we put this back on. And then we can work on putting in the new pads. Alright, so we're going to take our pick here. We're going to kind of just get under this and being mean to me. Come on. There we go. Pick not required. Alright, so now the boot has seated. Looks good. It's good and greasy. I'm going to do that the other side. Bring you back for the clips. Let me show you what I've got going on here for my batteries tie. But you've got these little single dudes, and with the bracket in this orientation, there's a seat right here, like a lip, and that sits down there, and it'll just pop in. And I don't have it in on this side, but then there's a clip that also gets pressed against the top that goes with those little square seat guys, and I got it pushed in over here, and I need to put in the seat guys in over there. But that is how that goes in. So you have, essentially you use 2 of these clips per bracket, and you're going to use 4 of these guys per bracket, so per side, if you want to look at it that way. The brake pad kit I bought came with all new clips. I suggest you use the new ones. The old ones can get bent and warped over time, so they don't do what they're supposed to do. You try to reuse them. So I would recommend that. We're going to need to kind of sneak this guy in here, and he's supposed to go up like that. So he does that. And see if I can show you one of these little square jobbers. There's a final piece that goes in, but I don't think it goes in. Well, there's 4 of them. I don't understand where that's going to go. But again, put that towards the bottom. So that's going to go in like that. Alright, we're going to go ahead, show you this here. We're going to put the bracket back on the rotor, which should be secured at this time. Remember, you've got these 15s right here. So just go ahead and get one threaded in. You get one threaded in. Shouldn't be terribly hard to get the other one threaded in. You may have to wiggle it slightly. Like so. And then we can go ahead and load the pads. Get that good. Yeah. Then we'll figure out where to put the last. I'll put more crank on these after I'm happy with the setup, overall setup, but yeah. Okay. We'll load the pads, and then I'll figure out where these guys, these springy dudes, I think they go across the back after you've inserted the pad. That's what I vaguely remember, because I helped my brother do this a couple years ago when he did this, but he was the primary on it. Today's pads are Duralast Gold ceramics. That's what a full pad's supposed to look like. It's got all the shiny. This is your surface that's going to push against your caliper. So you're going to want to put it in like so, but I may have the wrong one. I may have the one that goes on that side. Yeah, I probably do. Anyway, I'm gonna work on getting these in, and probably chase down all my trash because the wind's decided to blow. But we'll go ahead and get these loaded, and then figure out how those Z things go. I think what they do, if you look real close, there's holes in these pads, and I think they run from pad to pad after you get the pads seated. Okay, so this gets a little bit obnoxious, just letting you know, because you want it to go on the inside, but it's curved like this, which means you kind of want that. And then you got to get it to line up inside of all your anti-rattle clips, which can be kind of annoying, particularly when your anti-rattle clip moves out of position. So that's going to go there. Then we can't see what we're doing. Oh, that dropped right in. How cool is that? Alright, so that's how that works. And then, okay, you guys, it looks like you can see reasonably well. So let's get our pokey things. We need 2 of them. And let's see here. Yeah, that's the pokey thing. And the question is, does it go kind of up like that? Does it go like that? So, I mean, it could do that. And you would get, you know what? I bet it goes the other way. I bet it hooks on this tab. Let's see. Does that even make sense? No, that doesn't make any sense at all. It's got to go the other way. Alright, so just based on does this make sense or not, it'd be really nice if it caught that, but that doesn't make sense. So we're going to put that there. And we're going to put that there. And of course that spreads the pads to where they pop out, which means that that wasn't a very intelligent idea on my part. So what do those little stinkers do? So now I got to get this pad to see it again. This one fought me more than the one that you guys saw on camera. Here we go. So does it do some sort of cross the board maneuver? No. Does it do something like this? Does it? No, I don't think that would work. Does it do something like that? Alright, I'm going to play with this and figure out exactly how this needs to go. And I'll bring you back. Alright, so I did a little homework, and how I had them where they were trying to spread the pads out, that's actually correct. Which means that before I install that tomfoolery, I want to make sure that my actual caliper is ready to go. Which means we need to push the piston back in. Now you're going to hear a bunch of different opinions on this, whereas some will say you need to pop the bleeder, push it all back in, or let it bleed out there and then push in then, and then just top off your brake fluid. Others are going to say just do what I'm about to do, which is open your master, because this one needs to be flushed anyway, eventually, but not today. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to use a C-clamp, and we're going to carefully, slowly push our piston back in so that it will fit around these brand new big beefy pads. So to do that, what we're going to do, how am I going to do this? Let me get everything set up and then I'll turn the camera back on. Before we start squishing things, do kind of take a look, see if your dust boot is messed up or anything. And look at the piston itself, see if the surface is okay, see if chunks are missing, or if it's excessively rusted, or if you see any fluid down here. If you see any fluid, it means that probably the square cut seal that is underneath this dust boot has failed and you're leaking fluid, and that means either you need to replace the caliper or you need to remove the piston cup, clean all that up, put in a new seal, and then put it back together. I've done it both ways. It's generally way more better to just go to the store and get a new caliper. And this vehicle's new enough that you can still get new calipers for it versus reman only, because reman only can get annoying. Alright, I'm gonna get, when we look at our our C-clamp here, you got the top of the C, and then we got our pusher, right? So the top of the C is going to go across our piston, and then the pusher side, we're going to, where it says FOMOCO right there, we're going to put the pusher right there, and we're going to squeeze this back as far as we can so that we won't have to fight the caliper as we put it on. So set up something like this. I need both of my hands in order to stabilize this and turn the crank, but something like this, and then you slowly move it back in. We pop the master to reduce the pressure required so the fluid actually can flow back out. Because if you've got your fluid tippy top and you do this on both sides, you may, if you have it overfilled, you may spill out a little bit. If not, you should see the level come up a bit as you're forcing this back. That's forcing fluid. It's got to go somewhere. And if you give it an out at the master cylinder, it's better than keeping the system sealed. So anyway, I'm done blathering. I'm going to push this back and we're going to get this sucker on. And there is our end result. As you can see, we had the piston fully recessed and nothing got damaged, which is what we want. So now I'm going to put those little, basically springs. That's what this is. It's a form of a spring. I'm going to get those in with one hand, and then with the other hand, I got to push the caliper into position to hold these pads in place. Otherwise, the pads are going to go pew and try to pop out, and that'll be super annoying. Once we have the caliper in place, we'll go for these 14s right here to hold it into position. Okay, that's one. And full disclosure, I did do a little bit of quick research to verify that this was indeed what we were supposed to do. I haven't done this before. And while I have replaced many sets of brakes, I haven't done a set that has a system like this before. All right. Caliper is in position now to hold those little stinkers in place, and now we got to line up the back. So just kind of wiggle things around, get them to line up. Okay, that's one. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And that's two. So we're gonna, I don't have the torque values for all these, so we're just gonna go with snug, but you know, not axe murderer tight. We don't want that. So we'll just go with snug. There. Once we snug all that up, I mean, there you go. And because we did it the way we did it, we didn't actually crack anything open, you don't need to bleed your brakes following this method, as long as your master cylinder isn't so low on fluid that you introduced air when you pop the cap, which this one's not. So I'm gonna tighten everything up. Remember, when I broke these loose, they were snug. And a lot of that was because, it got snugged up and then it was exposed to weather for multiple years before anybody touched it again. But we'll make sure it's snug. This is my wife's daily, and, we're gonna make it right. Why is there fluid in there? That disturbs me. Like, what is that even coming from? I wonder if that came from the brakes. I'll have to look top side and see if we overflowed the master. Anyway, we're good. Check that out. everything's tight. We put our rotor hat screws back in. That was the two Torx T40s. We've got our 14s back in. We've got our 15s back in. We've got all brand new clips, new rotor. We sprayed the oil off our rotor so the pads will behave. We put our pads in. We put them in the correct direction. Don't want to put it in backward. That's metal plate on metal plate. That's no bueno. And they will, these days, technically, you don't have to bed in pads. Bed in is where you go find an empty road somewhere, you take it up to 50 miles an hour, you basically do a crash stop. Take it to 50, do a crash stop. Take it to 50, do a crash stop. It gets the surface of the pad and the surface of the rotor to kind of mesh up so you get maximum brake power. Technically, you don't have to do that anymore. They'll just kind of bed in by themselves, at least when you're using standard pads. If you're still using like a racing pad, like something from EBC, you may still have to do a bed-in procedure, but these should not require. These are ceramics, by the way. I did forget to mention that. They're a little on the spendy side, but low noise, decent performance, decent wear characteristics on the brake components, and they don't make a massive amount of dust. So, win-win-win. Okay, that's going to do it for this side. The other side's going to be exactly the same, so I will not film that. I'm only going to bring you back if you know, something comes up, and if something comes up, I will clearly identify that it's on the passenger side, not the driver's. This is the driver's side that I did all this work on. The passenger should be the same, but flipped 180, right? All right, I'll bring you back if needed. Well, look at that. That was brake fluid. See that? When we pushed the piston back like that, I think it overflowed the master slightly. And that's really yucky fluid. I really need to flush this. I just don't have time today. But what I will do is take a paper towel and just artificially lower this level a bit, because I know when I do this on the passenger side, it's just going to pour out. And in case you didn't know, brake fluid does two things we really don't like. It is extremely flammable because it's essentially alcohol, and it also will eat up any paint that it touches, and I mean any. So we don't want it to touch random things. We don't want it to go hide places that get hot. So we're going to go ahead and soak that up. Alright folks, I'm back. I'm done with the driver or the passenger side. Things to note, this one was about to go. As you can see, there is just the tiniest amount of pad left on that. The rotor was not damaged on the passenger side, but it was about to be. So as I said, I do pads and rotors together. So anyway, that's the old rotor. As I said, we're all done. Now that everything is on and whatnot, what you're going to want to do is pump your brakes. Get those pistons re-engaged, and then you're going to want to check your brake fluid level. Brake master is located here by the battery, and you'll need to top off if needed. But the last thing we need to do here is really just clean up and test drive. So let me do clean up, and then I'll do test drive. Let you guys know how it goes. Alright, I pumped the brakes. It's got a nice hard pedal now, and I have gotten everything cleaned up, ready to go. We're going to do that test drive. For the record, I did bleed for it, sliced my toe open, so feeling good. Generally, if there's a blood sacrifice involved, it's going to be a good repair, but we're going to do a quick test drive to verify. Alright, I'm back. That was a good test drive. The brakes are nice and firm. They're no longer making that grind feel or pulling in any direction. So I'm content. I checked the brake fluid level. It's at the max line. It's filthy. It needs to be flushed, but it's full. So for tonight, so the wife can use the car again tomorrow, we're good to go. So that's going to be it for this episode, where we changed out the front brake pads and rotors in a 2010 Ford Fusion 3-liter. If you found this video interesting, if you found it entertaining, if you learned something, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. That does help to grow the channel, which allows me to bring you more content like this. Please also leave a comment. I like to read them, I like to reply to them, and I do like to learn from them as well. And lastly, guys, as you saw, I very much make mistakes, so you don't have to. I'll catch you guys next episode.